Thank you for joining us back. It's time to review what made it to the front pages of our national dailies. And we kickstart with a Daily Trust. And the window headline was Maryam Sanda's release worst injustice to us, husband's family. And that's on pages 3 and 4 of the Daily Trust. Super Eagles face Benin in must-win World Cup qualifier today, and that's on page 47 of the Daily Trust. Enugu commissioners quit PDP as Mba joins APC, and that's on page 13 of the Daily Trust. And also we have National Assembly wants elections to hold earlier. We have that on page 18 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Soldier allegedly commits suicide after killing wife in Niger, and that's on page 25 of the Daily Trust. Then we also have 10 governors attend traditional rulers meeting in Lagos, and that's on page 12 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Cameroon's coalition claims early victory in presidential poll. That's on page 26 of the Daily Trust. And lastly, varsities shut, ASU rejects no work, no pay policy. And that's on page 5 of the Daily Trust. Do well to get yourself a copy and stay informed.
All right, next up, we have the Punch newspaper. Right in front, 2027 opposition splits over National Assembly poll shift plan. A NAS bill seeks to move presidential governorship polls to November 2026. PDP, NNPP alleged 10-year extension plot. ADC, LP differ. That's on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Right at the top right, we have ASU strike grounds varsities. The federal government clamps down. That is on page 2 as well of the Punch newspaper. Makinde warns Obike camp against stopping PDP convention. That is on page 14 of the Punch. Retired AIG leads probe into killings by Oshun Amotekun. That's on page 19 of the Punch. Slain husband's family slams Tinubu's pardon for Maryam Sanda. That's on page 18 of the Punch. Borno maintains lead as 7.4 million complete online voter registration. That is on page 18 as well, if you want more. Lagos rearraigns kidnap kingpin Evans over 2 cops as murder. That is on page 4 of the Punch. We have Fubura swears in SSG cautions against power abuse. That is on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Make sure you grab yourself a copy and stay informed.
All right, joining us to review some of the headlines of the pages of today's newspaper is the Programs Director, Daily Trust Foundation, Dr. Theophilus Abba. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning.
All right, let's start off
Thank you for joining us.
All right, let's start off with the Daily Trust. Maryam Sanda's release worst injustice to us, says husband's family. Now, the family of late Biliamino Ahmed Bello has expressed disappointment over the presidential pardon granted to Maryam Sanda. What is your take on that?
Well, I think many people still remember that what happened, the tragedy and the cruelty, the way that death took place. A lot of people still remember. If you mention Maryam Sanda, they remember that, look, he's the woman who killed her husband. As a pacifist, let me put it that way, you know, I believe that there should be clemency, there should be pardon. You know, so when I hear people who have been in jail being pardoned, I say, well, that is in line with my own kind of thinking. You know, but I don't understand how the presidential committee that came out with this list, decided who should be pardoned. You know, in other crimes, if you committed a particular kind of crime and you are going to be punished, either you are on death row or they say, oh, you are on life sentence, they say, look, you must serve a minimum number of years, you know, before you can be given clemency, before you can make appeal, before your case can be reviewed. The judge will declare that you are going to serve a minimum. They will say, oh, maybe if you are on death row, they say, okay, unless you serve 15 years, you cannot ask for mercy, you cannot ask for a review of your case. So I don't know what happened in the case of the list that we are seeing. You know, many of them are quite recent in our memory. Many of them are such that people still feel anger over what some of those persons did. So it's quite unfortunate. You know, like that of Maryam Sanda, unfortunately, is still fresh in people's memories. You know, maybe if she had served up to 10 years, 20 years, you know, and then you say, oh, it's been long, you know, so you can have mercy on her. Even the husband's family will say, oh, this has taken long. Let God, you know, take over. But in this case, there are some of them like that of Evans. You know, that guy, a kidnapper, a serial kidnapper, you know, who had even killed people. The case, of course, even yesterday or the first day, the case was, yesterday, the case was still being held in a Lagos court. You know, and you are granting somebody like that pardon. You know, it's quite unbelievable, sincerely. And I don't know how, whether this can be reviewed. A presidential proclamation is like a decree, which cannot be, I don't know whether it can be reversed. But then I'm thinking that if this is a very bad decision that has been taken, then in future there has to be a kind of guideline. You can't begin to pardon people whose crime stare us in the face, whose crime is still fresh in our memory. You know, where there are no doubts that they committed crime. You see, there are some persons, maybe they are accused of committing a crime, and you doubt that perhaps there's no clear evidence, you know, that they actually did it. You know, the evidence is not watertight. You know, things like that. Say, well, maybe the guy is unlocked, maybe he did it, maybe he didn't do it. You understand? So even when the judge, is passes that kind of sentence, you say, well, based on what I have, the information I have, well, I may have to do this. But when there are other evidence, new information, you can review it. So, but in this case, you know, like that of Sanda, it was quite obvious, you know, and people were outraged. There was anger all over. So you can't, you know, come after just few years and say you pardon. I think it's good to pardon, but then it's too early.
All right, let's look at this headline. The National Assembly wants elections to hold earlier. They want it to happen in November 2026 instead of February and March in 2027. So what is your take on that?
I think the argument about holding an early election came out of the campaign to ensure that all petition cases are heard and concluded before those who won election now are sworn in. This is whereby you win an election, you are now the president, you are exercising presidential power, and you are being taken to court, you know, and you already have all the powers, you know, to do whatever you want to do. The military, the security forces are under your control. You are already in charge of the judiciary. And then and then your case is being heard in court. You know, you have an upper hand. That's a symmetrical kind of a judicial battle. So if you are already in power, you have an upper hand over those who are taking you to court, and that is not fair. And I think that is why the National Assembly is arguing that perhaps elections should come much earlier. But there are other arguments to it. Why won't you say, okay, let's ensure that elections, that those who win elections face the court cases, deal with them, and then we'll swear the president on October 1. You understand? It's another argument that can come up, because we need enough time to discharge all the cases before people are sworn in. And in many cases, we say, okay, if it's election, let only Supreme Court handle it. You understand? So if the election has been conducted and there are issues, let it go to the Supreme Court. In a place like Kenya, the Supreme Court, you conduct an election today, and people say, okay, there was rigging. They say, okay, go to Supreme Court and plead your case. By the time you go there, so yes, there was rigging, so election is cancelled. You know, there was rigging, there was not enough rigging, we declare. And you don't need to do the rigmarole of going to the tribunal. From tribunal, you now go to the Supreme Court, that's for the presidential. You know, others will go from tribunal to Court of Appeal to Supreme Court. You know, that the route is too long. So if we say, let the Supreme Court handle all election petitions, especially for governors and the president, you know, it's okay. If we say, okay, let only the Court of Appeal handle those of National Assembly or State House of Assembly, let that be okay. The important thing is, let's ensure there is fair hearing. Let's ensure that the judges who decide these cases are actually very sound judges. You know, but this idea of saying, okay, you go to the tribunal, from tribunal you go to Court of Appeal, from Court of Appeal you go to Supreme Court. You know, it takes a long time. And some persons, will, if they are governors, they've already started spending the state money. You know, they'll spend it for about 3, 4, 5 months before they say, oh, you have won at the Supreme Court. Say, oh, hallelujah. So that is asymmetrical. So people, they seem balanced. So I agree that a petition should be held, elections should be conducted, petitions should be handled before those who win elections are sworn in. You know, I think I support that. You know, but I don't. But whether it should be in November or whether it should be in, I mean, should leave it the way it is, as well the president or those who win election after, I mean, on October 1, that is the country's Independence Day. I mean, either of them. But nobody should be in power and then, you know, be going to court. You know, you already have an upper hand over your opponents.
All right, defections. Enugu commissioners quit PDP as Mba joins APC. We saw the governor of Enugu State yesterday being, you know, welcomed into the APC. So what is your take on this?
Well, I think I look at it as a bad day for the opposition because if more and more governors are moving, you know, to what you call APC, we are now seeing a one-party country, you know, because right now we are hearing that even the NNPP, you know, which is the only party, the party in power in Kano, the Kwankwaso, who is their father, is thinking of joining APC. Then we heard that even in Bayelsa, Diri is thinking of joining APC. Then in Enugu, the governor too has joined APC. So we are moving towards a one-party state, which is not good for the country. Because we need a system where people can speak truth to power. We need a system where, the opposition can look at government and say, look, what you have done, we don't agree with it. You know, but now we're going to have a yes system if all the states have moved to APC. And if you see it, most of the states are now APC. So nobody can look at Tinubu in the face and say, look, what you have done is wrong. Even at the National Assembly, we don't even hear much of opposition. And you see, there was a time in this country where the National Assembly, even though they belong to the same party with the president, will look at the president and say, this one that you have said, we disagree with you. You know, now we don't have that system. So everything is yes. And so when journalists write any story that is against, you know, the yes system that in power, they will say, go and arrest the journalist. He's doing fake news or whatsoever. So it's not that now it's like the journalists are the only ones in the opposition in Nigeria. That's what I see. You know, only journalists. I try to say, okay, Mr. Government, this which you have done is not correct. It's against the law. There's corruption here. It's only journalists who are bringing these things out. Look at what happened. A journalist was the one who discovered that somebody who is a minister in government had fake degree and fake NYSC. You know, we had security agencies. We expected them to have, you know, done this. Even the opposition, those who are supposed to be opposition to this government, are supposed to have pulled this in and say, look, the man you made minister of innovation, science, and technology, you know, didn't have the degree that I claim they have. The opposition, that's the job of the opposition, minimum. The opposition should bring this thing out. But the opposition did not do it. It was journalists who would do it. And if you look at it, you know, people who are corrupt, people who have done things that they ought not to do, they have left the job to journalists. And journalists are coming under pressure, coming under attack consistently, which is totally wrong. Actually, for any country to function, you need a very strong opposition. If the government is not opposed, if the National Assembly does not oppose the executive, if the judiciary is yes judiciary, anything that comes from government is a thoroughfare for it, then we are heading to a very, bad system. We are already in trouble.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Theophilus, for helping us review the front pages of our national dailies this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. With that, we've come to the end of Daybreak on Trust TV. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. so you don't miss out on engaging and interesting conversations right here on Trust TV. I'm Hawa Ademikiawa. Thank you for watching.
And I am Maimuna Bagudu. Do well to follow us on all of our social media platforms and also subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay informed. Have a good day. Bye-bye.